Here we go. All right. So again, welcome to our Presbytery of Scioto Valley APCE Share Night. There were several of us that went to APCE this past month, and we are sharing our favorite workshop in a snapshot with you. So you're getting the creme de la creme of APCE. And so you have 4 of us live, and we're going to share one on video. We're going to share video on a video. We'll see how that goes. I think it'll go okay. We'll try it. So why don't I start us, open us with prayer, please. Loving and holy God, thank you for this day, for the hints of spring in the trees and in the air, and the birds singing their sweet songs. Thank you for this opportunity to share and grow and learn. Bless this time together. May it be fruitful, and may we honor you in all we say. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Okay, well, like I said, we're going to kind of share each of us our favorite APCE workshop, and I'm going to go first, and then we'll just see who's next. Mary might be next, but she may need to do a kid thing or a dog thing, and we'll switch it up. So I would like to share with you, and let me see, should I make myself big? Here we go. I am going to share with you PDA Story Productions, and that's on our Presbyterian PCUSA website. Let me tell you a little bit about what that is. You may be familiar with it, you may not. I know a little bit about it, but I didn't know what such great things there were, what options that they had to share with us for free. So I'm excited, and I want to share that with you. So PDA Story Productions, what they are and who they are. They are I'm going to open their website here real quick and read it exactly the way it says. They are a ministry that connects, engages, and equips congregations and community through the medium of story. And so they have these documentaries along with some resources with study guides available to congregations and communities, and you can host like your own screening, like you could do it on Zoom, like what we're doing right now together, or you could watch it, you could meet like at your church in your fellowship hall. You could watch it ahead of time on their own and then come in for dialogue. They have all kinds of things to help you share, like posters and descriptions and things like that. And they have trailers for each of their productions that they have. So let me tell you a little bit about what videos they have. They have one you probably know about. I think it's probably the most famous, and that's the Flint, the water story of Flint. And I guess let me just back up real quick and tell you when PDA, so PDA, those fish banks that we hand out, the 1 great hour of sharing, a third goes towards disaster assistance and in PDA. And so this is, I guess, is a branch, as an arm of this in some way related. What they do is when they go to a community, they only go to a community if they're invited. So they don't just show up and say, hey, we're here to do a story about your community and about this disaster that's happened to you. They have to be invited in, and they say they don't go in with any agenda. They go in and they meet with a whole bunch of leaders and community people before they do anything, and just listen and do lots of sharing times and forums, things like that. So, and then they, I guess they, spend a lot of time filming and, again, listening to what the community wants to have brought up in the film. They also make a commitment to not just show up and do their thing for a short time, but to be there not only during the filming, but to continue on. one of the options they have for the film is about the tsunami that was, gosh, it was a long time ago, and I'm not going to say the name of it correctly, but what they did is they followed a family for 10 years. So again, it's something that they're committed to doing for a long time. So now let me tell you a few of the films that they have. And they're all like super high quality, nothing less than what you expect if you went to, if you saw something on like Netflix or, and some of these films are on Netflix. The Flint water one actually is on Netflix. So it's not some like chintzy like thing like what we're doing on Zoom right now. It's a high quality job. So you can do one of two things. I'm going to share the screen, but if you want to like minimize me, and you can type in your Google search bar, PCUSA, PDA, story productions, and you'll come up with the website that I'm going to share with you right now. So either way that you like to look at things on Zoom. So let me share the screen real quick and show you. Okay, so this is the website of the Story Productions. I'm going to scroll up here to the top to show you Story Productions. And then as you scroll down, you can see the titles of each of the films. There are several. Flint is the one I've mentioned already, and that's about the water crisis that they have there with the drinking water, well, everything water. The next two are both about To Breathe Free and Locked in a Box are about immigrants who are here and they get caught and and then they go to jail. And one of these stories, a Presbyterian church in Dayton watched the story. An elder, I think at their church, got super excited about it and showed it to their congregation. And they actually formed a whole community event kind of thing with the community college involved, the symphony or the orchestra involved, and several churches. And I think even a Jewish or a Muslim community. It was pretty amazing. The next one is Syria. Trigger is about gun violence. Tapestry is about what happens when there's a traumatic event in your community. Okay, the Kapulahan, I'm sure I said that incorrectly. That's the one about the tsunami. And they have in production, I'm going to click on this. Trouble the Water Combination to Disrupt Racism and Dominance is a new one that's come out, and I think it actually might already be out that you can look at, and there's 4 videos to that one, and they're about 10 minutes. So the other videos that I showed that I showed on the screen, you can click on them. Some videos are as short as 5 or 8 minutes, and some are around the 20-minute mark. And I think there's a couple that are over an hour. So you can use these very well done videos. It'd be great to do in a Sunday school class. You could do it in a midweek thing. You could do a whole church-wide thing and do a screening if you want to. What they shared with us in the workshop was something called a virtual screening guide, and it has steps from the very beginning. If you want to do like a screening at your church of how to bring everybody on board and how to share it and get people excited about it, and also to talk about hard questions, because all of these topics have a lot of really hard questions. So the virtual screening guide, and I will show you this real quick. Looks like this. I'm going to scroll to the top. Sorry, I should have had it there already. It's exactly what it says, virtual screening guide. And I am going to put this, I'm going to email this to you guys as it's a PDF. This is what was handed out to us in the workshop. And so it's, available. I can do this. It's not breaking any copyright. And I'm going to scroll down here just so you can see what it says. It's got, like I said, it's 7 pages, so it's got top to bottom why have a virtual screening and how to do it. So anyway, I was super impressed with that. I encourage you to go to that website. Again, it's, I can put this in the chat. It's PCUSA PDA Story Productions. That's the easiest way to find it. I just put it in my Google search bar. And you, again, every one of those videos has a little 2-minute trailer to go with it. And you could just kind of go down a rabbit hole of looking at so many great things that are available for free that you can use. Probably, you could probably do it with high school. I would caution probably middle schoolers, but you know, it would be a great adult education, college, something, age 2, because it's kind of a one and done. You don't have to read a book. You don't have to prepare for this big class or anything. You can kind of show up. You could watch one of those 20-minute things and have a conversation about it. So that is PDA Story Productions. I was impressed with it, and I really hope that you guys check it out. And I will unpin me. And who would like to go next? Mary, are you ready to go next? Okay. Mary, you may go next.
All right. That's great. Jenny, and did you talk about how long those videos typically?
So they vary depending on which, you know, some are as short as 5 or 8 minutes. There are several in the 20-minute range and a couple of an hour.
Okay. I just was thinking like how to do that on a Sunday morning even, and if that was, because some of them, yeah, that's great though. That's awesome. I didn't realize there were that many. Yeah. Okay, so my workshop has this really dark title. Mine was Here We Are, Death Has Come, and There Is Only Resurrection Left. It was written pre-COVID, I understand, which is interesting because I think COVID changed the meaning for the workshop presenter a little bit. And what it intended to be, it started out as being, there's a place in Chicago called Creation Lab. And the Reverend Shauna Bowman, who has done some stuff, has created this collaborative space. And it was brought on originally for persons to have that can't afford to have like an art studio in their home and need places to also thinking about persons who are unhoused or who are in a place that just art supplies are beyond their, I mean, they'd be a luxury they couldn't afford. She was creating one of these places, so we allowed persons who were creative to be able to still be creative, even though they might not have some of those same resources. So she set this up with some other people, and it kind of began to morph a little bit. And so what she was talking about in this is this collaborative space. It started as a co-op and became more of a collaboration of people working together some in this space that they do. I have sent Jenny the information that I'm talking about, and it has the website of the space that they use called Creation Lab. But what it was is a space of a church that was no longer using that space anymore. And Shauna and a couple of other pastors and some other artists went together and wrote some grants and then created this space for people to use. And it's used by persons from all walks of life, but it was kind of done, the resurrection came from space that wasn't being used anymore. And also in then being able to find new ways to tap into creativity. What came from this, though, from Shauna, started to learn more about, is it became also a way of rethinking with COVID, starting to rethink about collaboration in our churches in different ways as well. Just moving from, I don't know about your Presbyterian church. I know Overbrook has many groups that have used its building throughout the years that meet there. And one of the things that Shauna talked about was moving beyond a transactional type of ministry with these outside groups into more of a collaborative type of ministry. And what she meant is a lot of times people will use our space and it's, hi, how are you? Come on in. Here's your space. Do your thing, and then go on. And that, obviously there are some pieces of confidentiality and things like that that preclude us not being able to be actively involved in the ministries that take place sometimes in our church. But in trying to think a little bit differently of how we become partners in that collaboration with them, whether it's just making an intentional effort to have someone that serves as their permanent contact instead of it in saying, how can the church be of service with you? How can we connect with you? What are things that would be helpful? Whether it's timing worship services so they fall right around the same times or right before or after those meetings, or things that connect somehow. But then also rethinking how we engage with the what word am I looking for? Just how do we engage with people who use our buildings? And how do we become more of an intentional connection in our communities to invite people to use our space in different ways, versus just Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights to come to. We tend to measure our importance on our attendance on Sunday mornings or our programs on Wednesday nights, but thinking about how are we a powerful connection within our community as well. So that is kind of where Shauna started to shift into, and she said it can be hard because it's a change, and that was part of where she was pushing us into thinking about how to be engaged with that community beyond just the walls of our church too, inviting people that might not normally use our space. What are ways we can do that? That might work for you, that might not. But she shifted into a mission, an activity that I thought was really powerful to talk about collaboration as well, like working together, because she also has now found with their creation lab, some of these people come together to work on each other's projects that are then used out into the community. Maybe it's an art installation outside. Maybe it's a prayer piece that's up outside of the church or out in the city parks or other things like that. So she shifted into ways of actually being able to push back outside into that community and using those artistic voices and visions to do that. So one of the activities she did, which works in the understanding of collaboration in general, was she took these types of candles, these really tall glass candles. I don't know if you've ever done this before. I'd never done this before. They tend to be used by our Catholic brothers and sisters a lot. But she got them at the dollar store and took everything off of them. So they were just the glass and the candle. But what happened, and then she had a bunch of magazines and marker, like glass markers, and just Elmer's glue on a table, and had us start with a framing question. And for us, because we were this was in February, right as we were really beginning to see some hope that we really maybe were moving out into a little bit freer time in some ways. This also took place in the city of Chicago, which was still masked and vaccines required everywhere. And so she asked where we were finding hope, where were the places we were beginning to see hope emerge, and invited us to look through magazines to find ways to take a candle and to look through magazines and begin to cut out pictures. And so we kind of did some inner reflection and started to work for about 5 minutes, and we started to glue things on. And then she said, stop and put your candle in the middle of the table. And then you took somebody else's candle, you had to release your own, and you took somebody else's candle and you looked at their candle, what was on it, and reflected on where you saw hope emerging out of that. And then you added to that using other things that you found and added to that candle. Put it after 5 or 10 minutes or so, you put it back in the middle, got another candle, to where by the end of the class, we had worked on 4 or 5 different candles. And then you got yours back to see not only where hope was emerging for you, but then how that began to push hope in other people and seeing different ways that hope was emerging, not only to you, but then through the community that was gathered as well. And what came was ridiculously cool. It might not look super cool to you, but I started with maybe the net in one phrase, and people picked up on it and found other images of boats and of hope and of joy and of all these things that emerged. And what came from it was this understanding of collaboration and working together. And for me, the Holy Spirit working through the middle of that as well. And it was a very powerful experience. I plan on using this with our young people. We're getting ready to do a mission trip this summer. And when we talk about working together and the power of working together, we will do this with our young people. It's hard to let go of your own stuff, and I get that. But I also think the importance of figuring out how you work together within the church, also as a model of thinking how we work outside the church as well, and being able to let go of some of those things, like, and if this horrifies you, I'm sorry, but to be let go of the pristine, ready to go room that, and yet sits still 6 days a week. Whereas if we can allow other groups possibly to use that in a different way, or maybe we find how we can blend our space sometimes, it might create something even cooler than we even can think about as working in the midst of that. And so that was kind of how Shauna was helping gear us and challenged us to begin to think outside of the box that we don't even realize we're in sometimes. So kind of that was that idea of resurrection and of kind of lifting up spaces that may seem dead, that aren't. They're just lying fallow, ready to be resurrected. So it was a very powerful workshop. Oh, then you also debrief, don't get me wrong, you debrief all of this. Good educators always debrief our things that we do. And then lots of ways, we talked about ways to use it with confirmation. You could use it with retreats with women or men or anybody. You could use it with your session. My gosh, can you imagine if you told them they had to cut and paste? They'd freak out. But it'd be so good for them. So just ideas. I know some of the idea of how spaces can and can't be used. Sometimes persons who are in an educator role might not have as much say about that, but sometimes you can also be a catalyst in planting an idea and a seed and seeing how it grows as well. So I thought it was a fabulous workshop. We were supposed to go to her creation lab, but they had a pipe burst the week before and flood the space, and it was getting repaired. So we couldn't go. And so this person transitioned on a dime and brought some of these pieces in, which was really cool. So that was my workshop and I loved it.
Nice. Thank you very much, Mary. All right. Betsy, would you like to go next?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, wait.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Unjoin. Mute. Is it safe?
I think Tom has to turn his sound down too.
That no, doesn't do it. Okay, I'm going to turn off my sound.
And she says,
Tom will have to unmute, I think.
The one that, well, of course, I went to the whole set of workshops. The one that I'm reviewing for you all is called Bridging the Gap. And it's bridging the gap between your church and the public school system. It was led by a pastor named Alan Conley, and his title is going to blow your mind. He is the director of the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives for the Chicago Public School System. So the job is not to go out and proselytize. Faith-based initiatives is not to promote Christianity or Islam or Judaism in the public schools, but it's to foster partnerships. And really the intent is to serve the children and youth in the public schools. So yeah, he said, we are not promoting Christianity. We are operating on the basis of our faith to serve these kids. So I've got a couple categories of programs that they worked on, and then I'll hit the high points of how he got his position started. He is a pastor. He was a teacher for 30 years before taking on this role. The mission is to establish effective partnerships citywide for the success of the students. What a great thing for churches to be able to contribute to. So the specific program umbrellas are, there's a safe haven program, there is crisis support, and there is an adopt a school program. Some of these are funded by the Chicago Public School System. So Safe Haven, that umbrella or that initiative was kicked off when there was a spike in violence in the city of Chicago. So they needed, obviously, after school programming, they needed spring break support for their families. They needed summer programs. They needed an emergency response team. So for example, after school programming, you've got all these kids all across the city who are free at 3 p.m. So churches, we have the space for programs for children or youth. So we could do art programs or sports programs or provide a study center for kids. He said, look for what is essential, and you, the church, be on the school's essential needs list. Figure out what they need, figure out where the gap is, and you or we, the church, can step in there. He said that these safe haven programs were very active through the shutdown of the pandemic. This includes being a remote learning hub. So spring break, if you are provide spring break programming for the schools, you provide activities from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. on weekdays. If you do summer programming, that is generally 6 weeks, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Those are all programs that are paid by the school. I mean, I don't know the proportion of what you need and what they provide, but it is a paid service. Emergency response is, oh my goodness, if the teachers go on strike, where do I take my kids when I'm supposed to be at work? So churches are set up to do that. Crisis support is that draws on our relationships. For example, he talked about a student who died in Chicago, actually not long before our conference. And he said, especially because he already had the relationship with the schools, he was able to be a pastor to the school, the staff, the principal, and particularly the mom. I'm not sure if he was in the principal's office with the mom. I believe he was. Mary, you've been nodding your head. I think he was there. Okay. But he may have been on the phone with her. Just to be a trained, compassionate person. And he did say, you know, I'm a Christian, but may I pray with you? And she immediately said yes. You know, that mom needed prayer. The principal can't pray. Well, maybe the principal can pray, but it's a great opportunity for the church to be able to be a faith community when a whole school system is in crisis. Maybe the church's place is to help with funeral expenses or burial expenses. And yes, churches often know where to refer someone for some grief counseling. Another category, I think a lot of us are dipping a toe into this category, but the adopt a school partnership kind of thing. If the schools, particularly the grade schools that are close to our churches, we need to know those communities. We need to do anything we can to build up that relationship. He said in Chicago, there's funding for the churches if you do 3 or more of these types of programs. For example, a coat drive, a food drive. I only have 2 events. If you attend events, no, I mean, so this, they're not going to pay you, but go to their plays and musicals, go to their concerts, you know, get to know the community. It's wonderful for us to see the opportunities and the education that is happening in our schools. So it's great for the community to see the church not just supporting the church, but supporting the community. So build that relationship. Anything we can do to cut back on truancy. He said that in Chicago, there was across the board 20% lower attendance during COVID for lots of reasons. Okay, another adopt a school idea. There's this huge lack of bus drivers. So if you have a church van, maybe you can help, you know, organize bringing kids to school. Mentorship. I love the concept of mentorship. You know, that really depends on a partnership with the particular school. And, you know, one-on-one relationships. So your imaginations can run with that one. He had a couple steps for growing into a partnership. His high points on how to get your partnership going were, there's an identification phase. He said, know the land. There's an information phase, and then your initiation phase. So in the identification phase, learn the neighborhood. Any access you have to grade school kids and parents is really helpful. He told the story of, well, when he was a pastor and he was only supposed to be doing things for the youth of his church, he did get permission to, well, he said schools, when budgets are tight, arts get cut. And so he had a lot of enthusiasm for doing a musical. I believe it was a musical. So he recruited kids, and he said, he sold it to the pastor by saying, look, if I can get 30 kids to be in the cast of this show, you figure there are 5 adults who will attend for every 1 student who is part of the production. So you'll have a full congregation on Sunday morning. So the pastor said yes. And he said the point is not excellence in theatrical or musical production. It's the kids having pride and being recognized, doing something good, having fun in a church, and you know, getting a whole lot of self-esteem out of that. Information phase, you know, he said, think small. Get to know your block. Who are your neighbors? What's going on? What are their needs? Oh, let's see. Yeah, he said, talk to the older parents. Tell me what you know about the church. And in the church, tell me what you know about the school. So you get to hear the other's perspective. There will be some accuracies and some inaccuracies there. Invest in the school with volunteer time, with talent, and obviously with treasure. What are the needs of the school for volunteers? That suggests find a good relationship with the principal and the staff, and just ask. And he said, yeah, here comes the dog, any kind of contact, I'm thinking about you, what's going on, what's great and what's troubling you. And then the initiation phase just gets started. He said it's great to strive to be part of something fun. And then I did not keep track of the time here. He said it helps to reflect on your own lens. Be aware of the filters that you have on the community. He said, yeah, you have to be authentic when you are going into a community. Don't do things that meet your needs, but don't address the needs or interests of that school. So ask what's going on. He said, if you hear bad news about your schools, maybe you're listening to the wrong people. Listen to other people. And if they hear bad news about the schools or about the church, then maybe they're listening to the wrong people too. How are the kids treated? How do we help them to feel loved where they are? Anyway, so how are you perceiving the church? And then try to be the church. Growing your village, we have to form the relationships in the school community, get beyond the boundary lines of our church properties. Anyway, yeah. And then, well, let's see. Anyway, it was really a wonderful opportunity to think about how do we get outside the walls of the church? And we do that by paying attention to the schools in our neighborhoods and developing some relationships with the school leadership and asking what they need and how we can support them.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. I just want to go to school. Hi, Kathy. Welcome, Kathy. All right, Tom, we'll let our Lone Ranger guy go.
Okay. My workshop was called Matthew 25 and Faith Formation. And I wanted to ask, how many of you are part of a Matthew 25 congregation? Raise your hand. Okay, hands down. Kathy's is partway up. How many of you don't know what a Matthew 25 congregation is? Raise your hand. Don't be ashamed. Right, so it looks like people know. One thing that impressed me was how hard it is to get every congregation in the Presbyterian Church USA to understand the opportunity of being a Matthew 25 congregation and focusing on three things in doing that. One, congregational vitality. Two, structural racism. And three, systemic poverty. And what this workshop did for me, it showed me all the resources that the Presbyterian Church USA has prepared to help us. So, for example, there's a 10-minute video done by the director of the Presbyterian Mission Agency that simply introduces what this call is for the Presbyterian Church USA, and a reflection on the passage from Matthew 25 about the sheep and the goats. And Jesus saying, whatever you did for the least of these who are members of my family, you did it for me. So there's a video introduction. Then there are Bible studies about Matthew 25. And then there are all kinds of books and videos and curricula. And so what I wanted to tell you about in particular is a curriculum, and it's called Follow Me. Follow Me. So you can go on YouTube, you can Google Growing Faith Resources, and you can see videos that introduce this curriculum. You can also just go on the Presbyterian Church USA and search for Follow Me. And you can go to the PSV USA store. What I really loved was this curriculum is user-friendly for adults. And it has a video component that has a professor who has, from seminary, prepared a foundational theological underpinning for this curriculum that's teaching why we're doing this, why it's important, why it's wonderful and exciting. And so one example from Follow Me is called Honor God's Diversity. And there's a professor from Louisville Theological Seminary named Justin Reed. He's a professor of Old Testament or Hebrew Bible. He's young, he's African American. And in a sense, he's teaching a class you might call Reading While Black, reading the Bible while Black. And so he teaches a lot about the scripture, but he also teaches how people have misused the scripture in a racist way. And he is a fabulous professor. I practically wanted to go to Louisville Theological Seminary just for him. And so you get a video each week of him, a short video. Then there's a booklet that's, there's an adult leader guide, an adult participant guide, which gives you exercises, it gives you reflection questions, and it gives you homework. And so what I love is it's teaching about congregational vitality. This is wonderful Christian education resources, but it's also teaching about being anti-racist, becoming anti-racist. Follow Me also has a series called Practice Spiritual Disciplines. And so each week you can focus on a different spiritual discipline. You can learn how to pray. You can learn how to do Lectio Divina, reading the scriptures prayerfully. You can learn different spiritual disciplines, and during the week, each day, you can practice. You can grow in that spiritual practice. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn on Sunday, but to not just forget about it, but to continue to build on it just a little bit each day until you're back in class the next Sunday. There's also in Follow Me a series called Practice Joy. And I just thought this might be the perfect time to do that, to use that curriculum, which was written during the pandemic, to try and help us to count our blessings, to be thankful, to see what God is doing, and to be paying attention. So great curriculum, user-friendly. I didn't know about it before. And to tell you the truth, I'm very critical of a curriculum. I'd often prefer writing my own curriculum than using something that the Presbyterian Church has done. But these are excellent. And so what we want to do is have these as an option in which, lay members can teach, and that we can help support. Another part of my workshop was teaching about training volunteers, supporting volunteers, recruiting volunteers, and thanking and celebrating volunteers. And so I think that's something so important in our church, that we often have the danger of, in a sense, using up volunteers until they're just exhausted and they run away. And what this workshop presented, what they called a 2.5 hat rule, which says you're only allowed to wear 2.5 hats at a time. One hat, you can be the leader of something. You can be the chair of a committee. You can be a very active volunteer. The second hat means that you can participate in something in which you're not the leader, but you get to enjoy it. And the third is just a half hat, which means you can try something, you can dabble as a volunteer and experience, but the rule is to prevent you from taking on too much and being too overwhelmed, and always, in a sense, giving and never receiving and being fed. So that was a great gift to me and hopefully to our congregation. So that was an excellent workshop, very helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. Thank you. So all of the workshops for a while, those that went to APCE, they're available online for I don't know how long, but we can go back, and some of these are recorded. All the handouts are available. So but just getting a little taste so far is really excited me. So Brittany also has a workshop. Hers is 7 minutes. We're going to go over just a couple minutes if I show it to you, but it's really good. So I do want to share it with you. And hers is on public prayer stations. So let me share the screen here. And here we go.
I'm sorry, I couldn't be with you all tonight and hear about your workshops, but Jenny asked if I would submit just a short video about a workshop I attended at APCE. So I attended a workshop on public prayer stations, using the outside of our buildings and our property as a way of public witness, social justice, and a way to not bring people inside the building, but really just offer prayer and reflection for those out in the community. So I think of, here in Columbus, those sheets that would hang from the overpasses over the last couple of years. I haven't seen them in a while, with different messages like Black Women Matter, Black Art Matters, and just different things like that being a public prayer station. Or if you saw the meme that went around when there was the news was all about kids in cages on the border, and people use those plastic holy families that you see like from old time Christmassy nativity sets, and they put them in a fence and in a cage, and talked about Jesus being a refugee, someone who was seeking safety and asylum in another country. Again, like a public social justice statement, public witness for the community. So this station was sort of like I think it was called Moving Beyond Thoughts and Prayers, with Erica Funk, who works at Cross Mission in Charlotte. And thinking about our own properties and spaces as opportunities to engage the community. So here at Broad Street, we're on the corner of Broad and Garfield, between Broad and Long by the Lincoln Theater. We have had 2 brand new apartment buildings built on our block since 2020. I think residents will start moving in probably any minute here. And then there's news of a 3rd building being built literally in the back of our parking lot. So the city's changing, and we have new neighbors, and there's a ton of growth right around here, and it's different neighbors. So we live we're situated in a majority Black community, the King Lincoln district, connected also sort of to Old Town East, but sort of how do we amplify Black artists, amplify Black business, keep money in the community. Well, these may not actually be. Anyway, so the point is what I keep thinking is like, how do we offer spaces? So I'm just going to tell you what I thought of at Broad Street. So there's 4 spaces I see as ways that we could do public prayer stations. One, we have a memorial garden that really nobody from the church actually goes into very often, but it's right outside of our food pantry. So I think about who spends most of the time in that outside garden are people who are there seeking food. So homeless or living in poverty, people who don't see a lot of worth and value in themselves. They may be on their worst day. So I thought about painting chairs from Goodwill and writing affirmative messages on them and leaving markers out for them, and maybe a big message that reminds them, like, you are worthy, you have dignity, you have value, and just like having that as a way they could interact with it. In the backfield, I think that is going to be often where these these young adults who live in these apartments that just went up, are probably going to walk their dogs on our property a lot. So I thought, could you put a St. Francis pet prayer out there? Could you put those little doggy poop bag stations and like have a sign that says, I hope you love yourself as much as your dog loves you. God loves you that much too. Something out there to engage in just the walkers, or write on a rock a burden, put it in this basket, and let us pray for those burdens. And then we have a community garden here. I thought about some art space and commissioning some local Black artists who live and work in the neighborhood to potentially brighten that spot about like value, love, welcome, feeding your soul, and feeding your body, nourishment. And then eventually, I think this will be the harder one to get to, is like along Broad Street, we have a lot of car traffic. So is there things that we can continue? We've done like luminaires when we marked the 500,000th death from COVID. We have big banners out there that say different things. But is there things that we could do, like t-shirts symbolizing every person who's died in Columbus due to gun violence that month, or other things that help show our deepest values and connect out there? Anyway, that's what I went to. That's got me thinking, but I hope that it helps you think through like what your outside spaces are. Are there like simple creative ideas that you can do that help us get beyond thoughts and prayers, but like engage the world in these creative visual things, like tie ribbons on this fence as you pray for refugees, or things like that. So I'm sorry I couldn't be with you, and I'm sorry I took 6 minutes of your time talking. I hope you found this inspiring. I really liked the workshop.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, wait a second. Okay. Oh, golly. All right. Well, I thought that was really great. And so thank you for letting us run over just a little bit, because I hope it gets some creative juices thinking. And wow, they got a lot going on there at Broad Street and some really good opportunities. But you guys do too in your area, and just looking for them. I think about us at Worthington on the Village Green. We have like so many opportunities, like the doggy poop bags might be a great idea. I don't know. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're so glad that you were able to come, and we didn't really leave much time for any Q&A, but does anyone have anything that is burning that they need to share or ask? Mary.
I was just going to say a resource that I was in a different workshop on Matthew 25 that was more geared towards children and intergenerational. Phyllis Wiseman, she's like the resource queen. That woman puts out resources right and left, and they're good. But she has one that's come out that I'll try to send the link to Jenni. It's Matthew 25. Oh, I can find it because I was following something else. She has one on living Matthew 25, and it's it breaks down each of the Matthew 25, when did you see me? And when it's the poor, the hungry, and the other. And she breaks each of those down and has activities that connect to those specific pieces. And they're Bible-based, very education-oriented, but also some fun, livelier things too that might work in Bible school and other stuff. And so there's a lot of overlap that sounds in a lot of our workshops, which is kind of cool. So I will try to send that resource. It's not very expensive, but she's got some great stuff in there. That was another one I did. Tom, I thought that's what you were talking about. We don't even know we're in each other's workshops because I was in Betsy's.
There sure is a lot of good Matthew 25 stuff out there, and we have so many good things on the PSV USA website that is free to tap into. So I'm going to put a resource sheet together with all of these links, and also the handouts that went with any of these workshops that I can grab off of that website, or the APCE site, and I'll send it all to you. I'll also list it on the Presbytery website as well, somewhere in a resource area. And Kathy.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I did just want to say, just encourage folks who do Christian education. If you have a topic you would like to have a conversation about or have a presentation about, please let Jenni know or let me know. I'm thinking probably maybe 1st of May, I want to offer something that looks really specifically at the PCUSA curriculum that's offered, including Follow Me, Growing in Grace and Gratitude, Feasting on the Word, and God's the one with the
Growing God's Love.
Yeah. So anyway, if that's of interest to people, so we'll kind of throw that out there and see if you'd like curriculum options for children, youth, and adults. I just like us to start with PCUSA stuff. If you don't like it, then you can look somewhere else, but let's at least start with our denominational stuff. So
yeah, well,
it's other ideas. You'd love more information. Tom hinted at training, supporting, nurturing volunteers. Would you like a whole time where you can interact and talk about that? We can offer that. Yeah, just let us know what you want.
There's also that opening doors to discipleship piece that's coming out through the denomination too.
Right, that's a huge.
Yeah, we've got to offer that. I think the last piece doesn't come out until June. I don't know if it's worth waiting until it's out or not. I've looked at it already, and it's fantastic. So maybe that would be a good combo thing 1st of May.
Yeah, and being recorded is good because it can go to some committees to maybe look at in the summer when they're looking at curriculum, to review. So, okay, well, let me pray us out and we'll sign off. Loving God, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share and grow and laugh and learn together. Bless this evening. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Great.
See you soon.
Okay,
Thank you, Jenny.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you all.
Okay, bye-bye.